a really special Thinking Out Loud episode for you today, talking about some of the mega trends that are happening in the marketing world.
Hey, welcome back to Thinking Out Loud. I'm Joel.
I'm Brad. Hello from Palm Springs. We've just wrapped up CMO Insights conference here with a lot of senior marketing leaders, and there's a lot of trends people are talking about, a lot of insights, and we want to share some of those with you today.
Yeah. So kick it off with one of the most obvious ones that's always been a perennial problem within the marketing world, but it is attribution, it's marketing efficiency. How do you know that you're actually getting something for the dollar that you're spending on marketing? This is still a problem. This is a big topic of conversation. What was interesting though, and I hadn't thought about this until now, is that for as much tracking as companies do, the internet does, that we know so much, there's still so much that we do not know, and it's so difficult. And what we found is that there's a real there's a recognition that right now we put marketing spend only behind what we can track by and large, and if you can measure it, then you do it. But there's this recognition that what are we missing out on, where because we don't have perfect measurement models, because it's not completely trackable, that we're actually missing out on
human connection, right?
Missing out on the human connection and missing out on huge potential market segments where we're still not smart enough to really fully comprehend the entire purchase decision and the customer journey, and when we think that we know it and we only focus on things that we actually were missing out on a whole lot more. And so there was a lot of discussion of just simply getting back to the fundamentals of brand, of storytelling, of quality product, and that the product can speak for itself. So that was fascinating.
Yeah.
And there's lots around so much discussion of data. There was almost this desire to pull back. And
it's AI and VR, and there's so many new innovations, right? I think it was you that mentioned, one of the quotes was, there's been more marketing innovation in the last 2 years than in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
But ultimately, the fundamentals need to drive your business. So what is your value proposition, right? What is your customer segmentation? And how do you go after those customers in a smart way? That has to drive your marketing efforts, and as opposed to the new shiny technology. And the new shiny technology is great, but you've got to have the fit within your industry and within your value proposition to make it strong. I think people are finally coming to realize that, and recognizing that maybe we've gone too far with the technology. And you touched on this, but I really want to emphasize it, is that brands and marketers recognize that what you do is a lot more important than what you say. And there's a shift to saying, hey, our product says something about who we are. We need to continue to emphasize the product, or the service, if that's the case, and not worry about how we're going to package it as much as the actual product and service. And to me, and we try to be as authentic as possible in the influencer world, and we believe it's extremely authentic relative to other forms of marketing. But that was really refreshing for me to hear.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, to quote whatever that baseball movie is with Kevin Costner, Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come.
Right.
And it's in like that, it was amazing to hear that message with all the efficiencies that we've gained with marketing spend. It still comes back to, have you developed a good product? Like, are you good at what you do?
Right.
And if you are, then people will be on board. So that was one.
Sure.
What's another?
Yeah, I saw a trend that happened, which was really fascinating. There seemed to be a clear separation about how marketing was defined within organizations. So tech organizations very much have marketing close to the product. They own budget. They can tweak and change how they're presenting different functions and features, and really leading that connectivity to the customer. And more traditional product companies, whether it's wine or traditional banks and credit unions, there's still a separation between the core of the business and marketing. And marketing is almost like, how do we send out the newsletters, and how do we develop our logo and imagery and make sure that we look good, which is important, but that's very different than being intertwined with the product categorization. So marketing means different things to different companies. And I think I'm very much a big believer in marketing being a core part of the business, and I think that's the future of marketing. But it's clear that there's still a separation, which I thought was a fascinating trend.
It is, but then there's also frustration though that we heard from a lot of different marketers is because there's no such thing as a pure marketing role, if there ever was. There certainly isn't now, because you're expected to be storytellers. You're expected to be data scientists.
Right.
You are expected to be innovators,
Creatives, graphic designers,
coders,
Yeah.
and ultimately product people. At the end of the day, and all of those things are now coming together, and so the marketing role is more muddled now than it ever was before. Which is, I mean, amazingly, at a CMO conference, you have people saying, "Well, what is marketing?" and which is like, how have we not defined this already? And yet there isn't. There isn't a nice, clean package definition around exactly what marketing is.
Right.
And so this multifaceted role was interesting. And we're hearing from folks that is their experience, that they don't even know what their job function is supposed to be anymore. And so to try and find, to pick their one thing and do that really well, it's become all increasingly different.
For sure.
It's
One other trend I want to touch upon quickly, and we want to keep this short, is that customers care so much about branding now. So your branding is more important than it's ever been. But interestingly enough, consumers are less brand loyal than they've ever been. And I think, just my perspective, and I'd be interested in your take, is that you've got to really, really find a way to connect with your customer at a micro segment level, right? Like, personalization, individualization is sort of underpinning this. And you've got to be able to do that.
Yep.
And the second you're not connecting with them at that deeply personal level, they're out and they don't care about your brand. I thought that was a really fascinating dichotomy there.
Yeah. I don't have a lot to add. It is it's you look at the brands that have been successful lately, and they have extraordinary branding, and it says something about the individual, and there's an identity piece, and so it matters a great deal, and it's a huge purchase driver, but it also is ephemeral and can be so easily lost. And yeah, you're right. It's something that we as marketers simply have to recognize and wrestle with, is that it's not just a question of earning a customer. It's that keeping a customer is much harder than it's ever been.
Right. Even with Facebook, we talked about that a lot, how Facebook's even aging, and now people don't want to be on Facebook because their parents used to be on Facebook.
Their parents are, now their grandparents are.
Right.
And so, so that marketing now, the old adage of, it costs 4 times as much to earn a customer as to keep one. I don't know if that's actually true anymore. I wonder that in some ways, technology and data has actually made it a fair bit easier to acquire a customer.
Right.
But you can't simply rest on your loyals and say, now that I've got them, they're going to stay. Keeping a customer is that much more difficult.
For sure, yeah. It's difficult to keep customers, and we also heard it's difficult to keep talent now because marketers are competing with tech firms for talent, right? And so everyone wants people that are analytical and can dissect problems and figure out how to best present a brand. And that used to be very much something that was a niche segment.
Yeah.
And now it's skills that everyone is going after. And I think that's an area where more traditional companies are struggling to compete in that war for talent.
And we're here saying like, hey, we want both right brain and left brain people that have an equal distribution.
Right.
It's like, well, you're talking about a fraction of the population. Good luck. Like, obviously, I think there's, if the reality is you're not able to hire people for the roles that you have, then you probably have the wrong roles.
For sure.
And you need to rethink that. So those are some of the trends. Those are what CMOs are talking about right now. We heard it. We're telling you while we're still here. We got to go get on a plane. And I think the large birds are now circling us. They see carrion out on the desert floor, and it's time for us to sign off. So long from Palm Springs. Thanks for stopping by.
Take care, guys.